In this video, we'll try to understand what exactly are Poco classes, how do we implement them, and why do we need them. But before we start with any kind of demos, let's first get the full form of Poco. Poco stands for Plain Old CLR Objects. Now, Entity Framework generates two core types of classes. One is a context class and the other one is the entities class. The context class, is responsible to fire SQL statements, to connect with the database, get the data, etc. While the entities class, they represent your real world objects. They have the validations. Now this entity class is the most important class. Why? Because it represents your real world objects, it has validations. So we would like that this entity class should be as lightweight as possible. We do not want this entity class to be cluttered and overloaded. Okay. But if you see the entity class which is generated by Entity Framework, if you expand this, you can find that, this class is decorated with so many attributes here. Okay. You can see over here, EDM scalar, data member attribute, and you can see, how the property name is also very cluttered. You can see there are so many events here raised. So probably, you'd like to go and create this entity class with your own hands. Clean classes you would like to create, like the way you were creating your old classes with simple set and get. And then probably you would like to take those classes and attach it to this context. And also, there can be scenarios, where already the project has been developed. So the project is already developed, it is having its own data access layer. Those entity classes are all created manually with all the validations. But you would still like to migrate that project to Entity Framework. You would like to enjoy the benefits of Entity Framework, but you would like to still, preserve those old classes and those old validations. So again, in those kind of scenarios, Poco is very helpful. So Poco means plain old CLR object. So you write your entity classes with your own hands, with that state of art, write the validation with the way you were doing it, and then reuse the context class of Entity Framework, to get the benefit of Entity Framework. So the first thing what we need to do is we need to stop the auto generation of these classes, because as we have said that we want to go and write these entity classes with our own hands, right? But at the same time, we would like to reuse this context class, what has been generated. So before we stop the auto generation, what we will do is let's go ahead and copy this context class into a separate class here, a separate class file. So I'm going to go and add a new class file here very quickly. So let's say that this class is context. Okay. So before I stop the auto generation, let me go and copy this context class into a separate class here. You can see that I had copied the same into a separate class. And now let me go and stop this auto generation over here. Now, in order to stop the auto generation of the code, we need to go and open the EDMX file. So let's open the EDMX file in the design mode, right click, properties. And you can see over here, there is a property called as code generation strategy. You can see that there is a property here called as code generation strategy. So let's go ahead and make it as none. And let's save this. Now, if you go back to the behind code, you can see that there is no code at all. So basically, no code will be generated now. Okay. And you are free to go and write your own state of art entity framework classes, or entity classes, I'll say. Now let's go to the context class and let's ensure that we remove all these red errors here. So first thing, this object context class actually belongs to the namespace system.data.object. So let's go ahead and import this namespace. So by importing this namespace, you can see a lot of red errors have gone off. There are some more errors here. So probably we can go and import these namespaces as well. So there it is. So those errors have also gone off. Nice. So we won't be touching this customer entities class really too much, this object context class. So this context class we won't be touching too much, but I've just moved it to a separate class file at this moment. Okay. So there it is. Now the next thing what we need to do is we need to go and create our entity class manually. So I'm going to go and add a new country.cs file here, where I will be going and creating my country class. Now, while we are creating this country class, right, we need to ensure that the property names of this country class and the data type of those property names should be same as what we see in our EDMX file. So for example, if I open my EDMX file here, you can see that the property name is country name. So the same name should be there in your handmade classes. For example, you can see population And again, the data type, for example, if you see population, the data type is integer. So we need to actually create the property with the data type as int. In the same way, you can look at country, the type is string. So again, the country name should be with the type string. So let's go ahead and create the first property, country name. So we'll say here prop full. So string underscore country name, right? So we are going to go and create with the same name here. So you can say country name string. The second property is population, which is integer numeric. So again, prop full, right, underscore population, and the property name will be population, right? Also, we need to go and mark our class as public so that we can create this object anywhere we wish, right? So this context class is here, ready-made, coming from entity framework. We have our country class, which we have created with our own hands, state of art. We will write our own validations here, right? So now the next thing is, let's go ahead and load this country class by using this context class over here. So let's go back to our console application program.cs. So the first thing is, we will go and create the object of the customer entities. So customer entities O equal to new customer entities. And we'll say here list of, so get me the list of countries, I'll say, okay, from this by using this context class, that is o dot countries dot to list of country. Okay. Now this is a very important step. You can see that this country class is our own handmade class, right? And this context class, that is the customer entities class, is coming actually from entity framework. Now, one of the things which can come to your mind is, can we go and delete this ADMX file, because we have copied the context code into a separate file, that is context.cs. We have created a separate entity file, called country.cs. So do we still need this ADMX file? And the answer is yes. This ADMX file, if you remember, right, in the previous part of the video, we said this is an XML file. So this code which you have copied, right, this context code which you have copied will actually go and read this XML file and map the database fields, to your property which is there in your Poco class. So definitely, you will still need this EDMX file. Why? Because the context class will actually use the EDMX file, will map that EDMX file XML values to your Poco class, and he will use the database to fetch the data. So now let's go back to our program.cs file and let's see if this thing works. So I'm going to go and put a debug point here, rebuild solution. Okay, done. So everything is fine. So let me go and run this program here, console application. There it goes. There it goes and loads the data, and you can see it has loaded 3 country values from the database: Nepal, Sri Lanka, and USA. Great, right? Now the way you would add data, you would update data, you would delete data, those syntaxes and those method names will not change. Why? Because you're using the same context class what you were using previously. Okay. The only thing is that, here we have a more cleaner approach. People who are purist, who think that, classes set and get should be neat, tidy. They should have the business validations, they should be following SRP principle, that is single responsibility principle. They should not have too many attributes. For, those kind of purists, I'm sure that this is a proper way. So you enjoy the benefits of entity framework. You have your own state of art classes and you create a best architecture out of this. So entity framework Poco classes is useful in 2 scenarios. One is, when you want to have a clean classes, you want to ensure that your validations and your real world objects are decoupled from the entity framework generated code. Second is migration. When you are working on a project, where you already created these classes, they are running very nicely, they have the validations, then again, Poco is the way to go. So replace your data access layer with a context class and enjoy your what you call old code, which is having the validations and the real world objects. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. In this video, we were trying to understand how to use entity framework Poco classes and in what kind of scenarios we should use them. Thank you so much.